All right, let's talk about a phrase you probably hear all the time, the deep dive. Today, we're going to move way beyond the buzzword and actually break down what it is, how you do it, and most importantly, why it's one of the most valuable skills you can possibly build. So let's get ready to go below the surface. You know that feeling, right? You're just drowning in headlines and summaries and top-level reports. You kind of get the general idea of something, but you know deep down you don't really get it. It's that feeling that there's this treasure trove of understanding just beneath the waves, if only you knew how to get to it. And that really gets to the heart of it. If you want to find those truly game-changing insights, you can't just hang out in the shallows. You have to be willing to leave that comfortable surface behind and really explore what's going on down below. Okay, so let's get into it. What are we actually talking about when we say deep dive? Because it's not just about spending a little more time on a topic. No, it's a very specific, structured way of thinking and understanding. So let's put a pin in a solid definition here. A deep dive is a systematic, focused exploration of a topic to get to a holistic understanding. Now, the two most important words there are systematic and focused. This isn't about just wandering around aimlessly through a bunch of information. It's about having a method, taking a subject apart piece by piece, seeing how it all works, and then putting it back together so you can see the entire picture. And this is such a great way to see the difference. A shallow dive is totally passive. You're basically just consuming what other people have put together. But a deep dive, that is active. You're not just reading the report, you're digging into its assumptions, maybe even generating your own data. You're shifting from being a consumer of knowledge to a creator of it. But here's the thing. Before you even think about the tools, you've got to have the right mindset. A successful deep dive isn't really about what you do. It's all about how you think. I absolutely love this definition of focus because it's not about what you're looking at. It's about what you strategically, purposefully ignore. Think of a scientist in a lab. They create a controlled environment by getting rid of all the outside variables. That's what you're doing with your mind. You're creating clarity by intentionally shutting out all the noise. So if focus is about cutting out the noise, concentration is about what you do with the silence. It's all about managing your executive attention, which is kind of like the CEO of your brain, and aiming all of that mental horsepower at one single thing. And let's be honest, in the world we live in today, that is a superpower. It's a state you have to be in to do really hard work, like writing complex code or figuring out a brilliant new strategy. And that leads us right into scrutiny. Now, this isn't just, being skeptical for the sake of it. This is an active stress test for ideas. Think about how the academic world works with peer review. You've got experts who are actively trying to find the holes in a theory. That's scrutiny. It's how you make sure an idea is actually tough enough to survive in the real world. And when you put all three of these together, focus, concentration, and scrutiny, you get into what people call the zone, or a flow state. You know that feeling where the rest of the world just melts away. All the distractions are gone, and you are just completely locked in. That is the mental space where your best thinking happens. All right, mindset? Check. Now let's talk about the toolkit. These are the actual techniques you're going to use to get down into the depths and pull meaning out of all that complexity. So the first tool in your kit is what we call drilling down. It's all about moving from the general to the very specific. Imagine you're looking at a business dashboard and a big red light is flashing, revenue is down. Well, that's the high-level abstract view. Drilling down means you don't just stop there. You start clicking through, layer by layer, until you find the tiny specific cause. Oh, sales of one particular product totally collapsed in one city because of a tiny supply chain hiccup. So once you've drilled down and found those specific parts, that's when the real analysis begins. This is where you basically take the machine apart, piece by piece. You're trying to figure out how everything connects, how one thing influences another. You're turning what was a black box, where you could only see what went in and what came out, into a totally transparent system where you understand the whole mechanism. A killer technique for this is the 5 whys, made famous by Toyota. The idea is so simple but so powerful. Never stop at the first answer. So, a server crashes. Your first why might get you the answer, well, it ran out of memory. But if you keep asking why did it run out of memory, you push past that surface level symptom, and you might find the real root cause, like a tiny flaw in the original code. That's how you solve the problem for good. And all of this really hinges on the art of asking probing questions. You can think of these as the drill bits for your deep dive. They're designed to crack right through those polished, surface-level answers people give. A question like, why do you think this will work, gets you a standard answer. But a question like, what are you afraid will happen if you're wrong, well, that makes someone access a much deeper, more honest part of their brain.
Okay, I get it. This sounds like a lot of work. It's an intense process. So why on earth would you do it? What's the big prize at the end that makes the whole dive worth it?
The whole game is about something called an asymmetric payoff. And all that means is that the potential reward is just massively, wildly out of proportion to the cost. Think about a venture capital firm. They might spend 100 hours and thousands of dollars doing a deep dive on one single startup. That's a huge cost. But if that deep dive helps them avoid investing in one massive fraud, it can literally save their entire fund. The payoff of dodging that one disaster is astronomical. And this is the treasure you're really hunting for. Key insights. Now, an insight is not just a fact. It's a non-obvious truth that gives you a huge advantage. It's that moment when you can take a mountain of confusing data and boil it down to one simple, powerful idea that you can actually do something with. Let me give you a perfect, real-world example of how this works. Say a company sees a ton of people abandoning their online shopping carts. The obvious assumption is, oh, our price must be too high, so they start a price war. But a real deep dive reveals the truth. The problem isn't the price at all. It's account creation fatigue. People are just sick and tired of making another new account. That single insight is the leverage point. Fixing that is way cheaper and way more effective. But really, when it's all said and done, the ultimate treasure isn't just one single fact or insight. It's the complete map you've built. It's getting to that aha moment, that holistic understanding where you finally see how all the different pieces fit together and you understand the meaning of the entire system. But how do you really know if your deep dive was successful? What's the final test? Well, the ultimate measure is your predictive power. See, a surface-level understanding can tell you what already happened, but a deep, high-quality understanding lets you accurately predict how that system is going to behave in the future, even under totally new conditions. So let's wrap this all up. Think of it as your deep dive compass, right? It really comes down to three things. First, you've got to adopt the right mindset. That means focus and scrutiny. Second, you have to use the toolkit. You drill down and you keep asking why. And third, you always have to be looking for the treasure, those key insights that lead to a complete, holistic understanding. So we've just laid out the entire anatomy of a deep dive, the mindset, the methods, and the incredible rewards. Now, it's definitely a tough journey, but it's really the only way to find the truths that actually matter. So the only real question left is, you have the map now. What ocean are you going to go explore?